He never asked for the crown. He just wanted a simple life on the assembly line. But his voice was too loud for a factory. It shook the walls. It demanded attention. Picture this. He is standing in the wings of a smoky club. The man on stage is a legend, but he has fallen apart. David Ruffin looks at him. His eyes are tired. He knows the end is coming. He whispers a secret. He tells the young singer to take his job. The world thought it was a betrayal, but it was a passing of the torch. Here is the deal. The Temptations needed a savior, and Dennis Edwards was ready to sing. Dennis Edwards started his life deep in the South. He was born on the 3rd of February 1943. The town was Fairfield, Alabama. It sat just 8 miles from the steel mills of Birmingham. His father was a reverend. The church was the center of their world. Sunday mornings smelled like old hymnals and floor wax. Dennis learned to sing in the pews. His voice was a gift from above. When Dennis was 10 years old, his father moved the family north. They landed in Detroit, Michigan. The Motor City was loud, it was fast, it was full of promise. Dennis kept singing. He directed his father's choir. He even joined a famous gospel group called the Mighty Clouds of Joy. His voice could shake the rafters. But here is the surprise. Dennis did not dream of gold records. He did not want his name in lights. He looked at the men in his neighborhood. They worked in the car factories. They had steady checks. They had simple lives. That is what Dennis wanted. He wanted to work on the assembly line. He just wanted to be normal. After high school, he joined the Army. He served his country. But when he came back to Detroit, the city had a new rhythm. Berry Gordy and Motown Records were taking over the world. Everyone wanted to be a star. Dennis felt torn. His father said pop music was sinful. It was the devil's music. But Dennis saw his idol, Sam Cooke, switch from gospel to soul. He saw his friends making money. He made a choice. He formed a band called Dennis Edwards and the Fireballs. He played in small, smoky clubs. The lights were dim. The crowds were tough. But a producer heard him one night. He brought Dennis to Motown. Berry Gordy loved the voice, but he was too busy with other stars. So Berry made a deal. He put Dennis on a retainer. He paid him about $300 a week just to wait. Dennis sat on the sidelines for 2 years. He filled in when other singers got sick. He was a secret weapon with nothing to shoot. Then a lead singer for the Contours fell ill. They were opening for the Temptations. Dennis stepped in. He sang hits like It's So Hard Being a Loser. He watched the Temptations perform every night. He saw David Ruffin destroy the stage. They became friends. But David was in trouble. His ego was out of control. But here is the deal. David Ruffin saw the future before anyone else. He told Dennis the group was going to fire him. He told Dennis to take his spot. It was a golden ticket. But Dennis did not know the cost. He was about to step into a pair of shoes that would blister his feet. The music was sweet, but the jealousy was bitter. The stage was set for disaster. Dennis Edwards walked into the spotlight. The glare was blinding, but the darkness in the crowd was worse. He grabbed the microphone. He looked out at the sea of faces. They did not want him. They wanted David Ruffin. The crowd chanted the old singer's name. They held up signs. Some even threw things at the stage. The pressure was heavy enough to crush a tank. Dennis was 25 years old. He was standing in the shoes of a giant. But here's the deal. Dennis did not try to be David. He did not try to be smooth. He went back to his roots. He remembered the church pews in Alabama. He remembered the fire of the gospel. He opened his mouth. He did not croon. He roared. His voice was like gravel mixing with honey. It was rough. It was real. It hit the audience in the chest. The booing stopped. The silence hung in the air for a split second. Then the cheering started. It started low, like a rumble. Then it turned into a roar. Dennis Edwards had arrived. But wait, it gets better. Motown was changing. The world was changing. It was the late 1960 seconds. The streets were hot. The music needed to match the times. A producer named Norman Whitfield had a vision. He wanted to take the Temptations to a new place. He wanted to trade the matching suits for something wilder. He called it psychedelic soul. He needed a voice that could carry the weight of the world. He found it in Demise. They went into the studio. They recorded a song called Cloud 9. The beat was funky. The guitars screamed. It did not sound like the old Motown. It sounded like the future. The song hit the radio waves. It exploded. It was bold. It was gritty. And it did something no Motown song had ever done before. Cloud 9 won a Grammy Award. Think about that. Diana Ross had not done it. The Supremes had not done it. Smokey Robinson had not done it. Dennis Edwards and the Temptations brought the first golden trophy home to Berry Gordy. Dennis was no longer just a replacement. He was the king. Gravity pulls hardest at the top, but Dennis kept climbing. The hits kept coming. The group released I Can't Get Next to You. It shot to the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. The money poured in. They were selling out arenas. They were traveling the world. Then came the masterpiece. It was 1972. Norman Whitfield gave them a song that was nearly 12 minutes long. It started with a menacing bass line. It built tension like a thriller movie. The song was Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Picture this. The song begins with that long, haunting instrumental. Dennis waits. He waits for almost 4 minutes before he sings a single note. And when he comes in, his voice is pure drama. He growls the famous line. He asks his mother about his father. The delivery was perfect. It was angry. It was sad. It was the truth for so many families in Black America. The song was a monster. It won 3 Grammy Awards. It sold millions of copies. It became an anthem. Dennis Edwards was the voice of a generation. He drove the fanciest cars. He wore the sharpest clothes. The world saw a superstar with a smile that could light up a room. He had proved everyone wrong. The factory worker from Detroit was now a legend. He had money. He had fame. He had respect. He had stepped out of the shadow of David Ruffin and cast a giant shadow of his own. But success is a tricky thing. It gives you everything you want, then it asks for the check. The touring schedule was brutal. The nights were long. The party never ended. While the world saw the glory, the cracks were starting to form in the foundation. The music was loud, but the silence in his own heart was getting louder. The view from the top of the mountain is beautiful, but the air is thin. You cannot breathe up there forever. Dennis Edwards was living a dream. He was the voice of the Temptations. He had the Grammys on his shelf. He had the cash in his pocket. But in the music business, a handshake is often just a prelude to a shove. The brotherhood was cracking. It started small. A side eye during a rehearsal. A cold shoulder on the tour bus. The laughter stopped. The argument started. Otis Williams was the leader of the group. He was the general. Dennis Edwards was the star. And in the history of rock and soul, the general and the star rarely get along for long. Here's the deal. It was 1977. The music world was changing again. Disco was taking over the radio. The Temptations felt like they were losing their crown. The group wanted to leave Motown Records. They felt Berry Gordy was not paying them enough attention. They wanted to sign a big deal with Atlantic Records. Dennis was torn. Motown was his home. Berry Gordy was the man who gave him a chance when he was just a factory worker. Dennis spoke his mind. He was loud. He was passionate. He clashed with Otis. The tension backstage was thicker than the smoke in the clubs. Then, the hammer dropped. Picture this. It is a cold day in Detroit. The meeting is short. The words are sharp. There is no shouting, just a cold, hard fact. You are out. Dennis Edwards was fired. He stood outside the studio. The door was closed. The silence was louder than the applause ever was. He was 34 years old. Yesterday, he was a superstar. Today, he was just a man on the sidewalk. It felt like a betrayal. He had given his voice to the group, he had replaced a legend, and then he became a legend. Now, they were moving on without him. They hired a new singer named Louis Price. They packed their bags for Atlantic Records. They left Dennis behind in the dust. But wait, it gets worse. Dennis went home to his big house. The rooms were filled with expensive furniture. The driveway had luxury cars. But the phone did not ring. The friends who drank his champagne and ate his food disappeared. The isolation was brutal. When you are on the road, you run on adrenaline. You live for the 2 hours on stage. The lights blind you to your problems. The cheering crowds drown out your thoughts. But when the lights go out, you are left with yourself. Dennis tried to fill the void. The party lifestyle does not stop just because the paycheck does. The nights were long. The habits he picked up on the road followed him home. He sat in his mansion, surrounded by golden trophies, feeling like a failure. He watched from the sidelines as the Temptations released their new album. He watched them try to be stars without him. He saw them struggle. The magic was gone. The fans missed the grit. They missed the growl. They missed Dennis. But that did not fix the hole in his chest. He was a singer without a song. He was a king without a kingdom. The music industry is cruel. It loves you when you are hot. It forgets you the second you get cold. Gravity pulls hardest when you are alone. Dennis looked in the mirror. The face staring back was tired. The smile was gone. He realized that fame was rented, not owned. The lease was up, and the landlord had kicked him out. He had to make a choice. He could let the silence swallow him whole, or he could find a way to make noise again. But for now, the house was quiet, and the silence was heavy enough to crush a man. The newspapers printed bold headlines. They said the Temptations were ready for a new chapter. The articles claimed the move to Atlantic Records was a fresh start. They hyped up the new singer, Louis Price. The media promised a smoother, sweeter sound. But the streets told a different story. Fans bought the records. They dropped the needle on the vinyl. They waited for the magic. But the speakers only played polite music. The grit was gone. The raw power that shook the floorboards was missing. The polish was there, but the fire was out. Here is the deal. You can replace a man, but you cannot replace a feeling. The public realized the truth quickly. The critics who once called Dennis a troublemaker now missed his voice. The radio station stopped playing the new songs. Instead, they spun Papa Was a Rolling Stone and Cloud 9. The world is fickle. It loves a shiny new toy until it realizes the old one worked better. The Temptations looked like stars on the album covers, but on the radio, they sounded like shadows. The fans did not want smooth. They wanted the thunder. And without Dennis Edwards, the storm had passed. Dennis Edwards left this world on the 1st of February 2018, but true legends never really leave. They live on in the music. He was not just a replacement. He was the heartbeat of an era. When you hear that famous growl on Papa Was a Rolling Stone, you hear a man who gave his soul to the microphone. He took his pain and turned it into power. He proved that a factory worker from Alabama could become a king. Some stories end without closure, but dignity doesn't need applause. Which Dennis Edwards song brings back the best memories for you? Share your story in the comments below.